Okay, so we can review. Last week we talked about inheritance. We learned about inheritance. We talked about the constructors, how we can talk to the base class constructor by calling it from the derived class constructor. We will more than likely always have to send some initializing data to the base class, so that's why that comes in handy. We talked about a new access specifier, the protected access specifier, which makes base class data available or functions available to the derived class, but not to other code like main or test cases. We also covered overriding class functions. So there's a class function in the base class, for example, the getBalance, and we go ahead and give it new meaning in the derived class. With this, it has to have the same signature. So if it returns integer, then getBalance has to return integer and has to be cons, right? Like for our bank account class, and you can give it new meaning in the derived class. What else did we cover? Inheritance and pointers. So we went ahead and talked about how it's important to always use pointers with inheritance, and that is to prevent object slicing. So functionality from the derived class would be eliminated from a pointer base class to pointer to a derived class instance, right? And then pointers also help us implement polymorphism through virtual functions, right? So we learned that, and we learned about the override keyword. That helps us make sure we're overriding a function from the class, base class. And final, to make sure that if we have functions, class functions, we don't want anyone to override, then we mark them as final, virtual final, and then that prevents anyone from overriding them in the future, which is very good. Okay, what about this week? So this week we have to speed up things quite a bit. We will talk about chapters 5 and 13, so 5.12 and chapter 13 dealing with files. So we will talk about how file output is more or less the same as outputting to screen or outputting from keyboard, with the exception that now we are outputting to hard drive and reading from hard drive and putting it into our program, right? So from memory, before we would go to screen, but now what we are saying is, well, from memory I want to go to the hard drive, and from the hard drive I want to go back into memory, back into streams, and into my source code, so that I can use data that I read from a hard drive in variables. Okay, so that's what we will do. We will also talk about stack arrays, and we will see how we can create a list of data types, for example, integers. And then we will also talk about 2x2 arrays, and this is what chapter is it? Let me verify again. Okay, this will be chapter 8, where we talk about arrays, and then chapter 10, review it with arrays as pointers as parameters, and more importantly, what you will see is what is the relationship between pointers and arrays. Okay, so important concept. So got a lot to cover today. Wednesday we will get introduced to dynamic memory, so make sure you read about dynamic memory, returning pointers from functions, right? Because pointers to class objects and constructs, we kind of covered them, but make sure you read this if you get a chance. It'll help you understand the lecture a lot better. Okay, so we are getting close to the end of the semester, so this next few weeks, don't take them for granted. They are very important for building a foundation for strong memory management concepts. And the better you understand memory when you're coding, the better programmer you'll be in the future. So please keep that in mind. Okay, thanks.